Hashtag unstoppable.
Hashtag jerked.
Unrapeable.
Can't quit coughing. I have no voice.
What if I just let it run and I never sniff?
Down your mouth. That'd be like, that's classic YouTube.
Or we start off like that fat guy. I thought this was without this on y'all's.
Let me tell you about this right
Today,
now.
today we're going to talk about some Jensen 13th.
You guys may know about Final Chapter, but you guys don't know about Final Chapter.
I'm in the hallway laying on the stairs.
This is going to be great. No voices from either one of us. He's Blake. I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken podcast. And Blake, we're back. And today we're entering the final chapter of Friday the 13th. We've been through part one. We've been to Panacac, whatever it was. We've been to Crystal Lake.
Been to Kikiki.
We've been to Camp Kikiki. We went to Higgins Haven. And today we're heading over to the Rent House by the Jarvises for Friday the 13th, part 4, the final chapter, a movie that a lot of Friday the 13th fans think is the best one. So I cannot wait to talk about this.
First off, Ronnie, how was your day?
My day?
Yeah.
It was all right. I got hot.
Yeah,
lost my voice.
I don't think I even told you this off air. I was involved in a hit and run yesterday.
Nice.
Of course. Of course. So I was inside a store and someone, a woman, she came in there she said, "Excuse me, sir, I need your help." And I said, "What can I help you with?" And she said, "No, I need your help outside." And I said,
hot mouth.
I said, "Why?"
God,
and she said, "Yeah," immediately mad. And she said, "It's an emergency."
Wow.
And I said, "Okay, my mind's immediately here.
Mm-hmm.
What have they done to my effing car?"
Are you going to walk out the door and they're going to hit you over the head with a snow shovel?
Oh, no. They took one look at these and they knew what was going down. But I noticed the daughter with her had tears in her eyes. And I said, "Okay, all right, let's see how bad this is." We get outside and she said, "My daughter, who's 18 and don't have a license and don't have insurance
or car,
ran into the back of your parked car." And I said, "Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful." And she said she panicked and she left the scene and drove all the way home. And when she told me about it, I made her get back in the car, drive up here to tell you what happened because we know this store has cameras. And I said, that's a lot to take in. She said, "I'm really sorry. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I've never been in trouble in my life." And I said, "Well, you did the right thing." And I called the police and I had her arrested. And that's the end of the story. That's it.
That's why you're the best. Let's get into this movie, Blake.
And then I beat the shit out of the mom.
It appears to be no sleeve review time around here.
Ronnie, I've really enjoyed reviewing these movies with you, brother. Let me just start off by saying that. This has been fantastic. Fantastic. You ask anybody who is a fan of this franchise what their favorite Friday the 13th is, and 99% of them are going to say part 4 or part 6. I came into this one with fresh eyes. I think this is the number 4 out of the first 4 movies. It may be better than part 3, but as of right now, rewatching the first 4, I got number 4.
That's a hot take. That's a hot take. I'm going to tell you right now. Watching this movie, before I watched it, this has always been, before we started this series review, I've always said this. My personal favorite is part 6. But I thought that the top movie in this franchise was probably, depending on what day you caught me, part 2 or part 4. I don't know what my opinion is going to be at the end of the series, but I can tell you right now, I don't hold 4 as high as I held it before I did this watch through.
Everyone out there in YouTube land, comment down below. Why explain to me why part 4 is better than 1 through 3. Like, that's a legit question. I want to hear your thoughts. Why is this better than 1, 2, or 3? The only argument I feel like you could make is Ted White, the portrayal of Jason Voorhees.
I agree with you 100%. I was going to say the two things people are going to say, Ted White, Tom Savini effects.
Okay. I thought you were going to go Corey Feldman, Tommy Jarvis character, the first child character. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No.
But honestly, as far as story-wise, and we're about to break it down, I don't think this is better than the first 3. I don't. Maybe it's better than part 3. Maybe.
Did you say story-wise?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that. And before we get into this, I love this movie. Before we get into this, I love this movie. I don't need to be told how good it is.
That's right. And I'm not saying I don't like the movie, guys. I love this movie. My favorite franchise. I think Friday the 13th fans are the smartest fans out there. Way better than Halloween fans. Way smarter, way sexier. You know, this is the best horror franchise there is. I love Friday the 13th Part 4. But on this rewatch, just like the other movies have, this one's fallen below 1 and 2 for me.
Make the argument of why this story is better than any of the first 3. In my opinion, the final chapter has the weakest story of the first 4 movies. This is the definition of a popcorn slasher where they just drop a bunch of people and have Jason there. Okay. I think this one has the weakest story of the first 4 movies. And I'll explain it when we get into the good and the bad and the ugly, okay? Because, like I said, I love this movie. So, unless you got something else you want to talk about, let's get into the good.
Yeah, well, I the last couple of gimmicks, or a couple of reviews we've done, I like the gimmick of like opening random questions to do the opening. Like this movie takes place on Tuesday the 17th, Ronnie.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the math, the last 3 movies, part 2, part 3, and now part 4 is a result of 5 days and 34 people have died. The twins in this movie.
I got a note for the twins. They're one of my bad.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll save it then. So yeah, let's roll right into the good. I'm gonna let you start us off this week.
All right, the good. Picking up where part 3 left off. I do love that about parts 2, 3, and 4 is they all pick up where the other one left off. I want to ask you the question, did they retcon the ending of part 3? And the reason I asked this, Blake, far and away, I think it's either this movie or part 7 has the best intro. We get all the scenes from part 1, 2, and 3 at the very beginning with Paul. I think it's Paul, right? Paul by the campfire saying everything. Part 7, we get Crazy Ralph narrating the history of Jason, which is amazing as well. So I really think that's a coin toss on the best introduction. Now, what I want to say is this. At the end of Friday the 13th, part 3, Chris was being loaded into a police car and taken away, and Jason was laying there with cops all around in the daylight. This one picks up at night. It is amazing. They have helicopters overhead. They have multiple hearses and ambulances coming in there to take out the dead bodies. Cops everywhere. And Jason's laying over in the barn, and it's nighttime. So did they retcon the movie to end at night? Or have the cops been there the entire day cleaning up dead bodies?
I took it, and this is my first good as well, Ronnie. I took it as they've been there all day looking for bodies, because technically, Ronnie, they've been there for 3 days. They just hadn't been on this side of the camp yet.
Good point.
They make their way over here, and they call in a chopper. Can you see any bodies from up there? I mean, Jesus, I'm assuming that's what that was for. Yeah, they've been there all day, and they're having to get more ambulances, more paddy wagons to load these people up, and they're finally finishing up at Higgins Haven. Yeah, this is the only movie that uses a set piece from a previous movie.
And it's great. You pointed out in a picture you showed me, there's a damn Christmas reindeer decoration out there in the middle of everything, or either one of those futuristic robot dogs.
Yeah, so now I got to go back and rewatch part 3 to see if that's in there. I was really wanting to do that. But yeah, Ronnie, my first good is the opening recap. You talked about it earlier. We get the infamous Paul scene around the campfire telling the story of Pam Voorhees and Jason Voorhees while showing us all the cool kills from part 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. What are you doing out in this mess? The opening crime scene you mentioned, the way they have it lit is really cool. I kind of wish we could have seen it a little bit better, but I get what they were going for. Ronnie, I'm going to steal a line from you that you said on our audio podcast 4 or 5 years ago. It's like the lights go off when the ambulance and cop car and helicopter leaves, and it's just really dark, and you see the barn. It's like they're closing the door on that chapter.
Yeah.
And we're moving on.
And it's so creepy. That was the last note I had for my first good. When the helicopter and the cars pull out, it's just the creepiest, most eerie feeling about what happened at that place. I mean, it's very, very disturbing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They go to the hospital, Blake.
Yeah.
You get the whole scene of Jason being wheeled into the hospital. And I'm not even going to bring up the fact that they left the mask on him, because I don't care. You have to leave the mask on him. It's a movie. As they wheeled by a room, somebody's getting consoled. And I want you to take a look right here. I've got actual visual aids.
Okay, let's see it.
So here's the lobby. Who is getting consoled right here? They make a point to show this room because the only person that could possibly be alive is Chris. Is that Chris and her family? Is that who we're seeing right here that's getting consoled? Well, or is that other family members that have found their loved ones dead?
Well, that's another great point, but I think we're supposed to assume that's Chris, Ronnie. But it doesn't add up with Chris's history, because if history tells us anything with her backstory, her parents wouldn't give a shit, just like they didn't give a shit when Jason raped her 2 years earlier. It never happened. Hush.
That leads us into Axel, the perverted nurse, whatever the hell he is in the morgue. Why does this? What is the fascination in horror movies with the guy that works in the morgue being a pervert? You know, this dude's eating a sandwich as they roll dead bodies in. They make the comment of a cute girl was, well, she still is. It's the guy from Police Academy. I don't know his name.
Ronnie, look, it's Jarvis. Look at Jarvis, Ronnie. Say, hey, Jarvis. Say, hey, YouTube. Here, give me mouse sugar.
But this guy's getting the nurse in the hospital. He's the biggest geek ever, and he's getting the nurse. I mean, it makes zero sense. He calls her into the room, and she's ready to go. But the reason I bring all this up is, you know me. Whenever there's something on the radio or the TV explaining what's going on in the area in the previous movies, especially this one that's taking place over a couple of days, I want to know all about it. And I was so focused on this local news channel that had the authorities at the desk and the news reporter at the desk talking about what had happened, and the authorities going, the man who is responsible for this massacre has been killed, and he's currently in the morgue at the hospital, before they turn the TV. I thought that was really good. I like that. It's letting everybody in Crystal Lake know we took care of the person killing people. Y'all go back to normal, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right into my next good, the kills. I mean, the kills in this movie are really good. They're brutal. Like Axel I was just talking about. He's got the nastiest kill. I mean, it's like a, what is that? Like a hand saw or whatever that is, bone saw to the neck. And then Jason just twists his neck all the way around. And then Jason's walking around the hospital. He goes into that room where the nurse is. It's not enough just to stab her. Or to choke her out. He's got to like take the scalpel all the way down. I think they cut that down. I think he actually released guts. He beat guts.
Yeah.
The kills in this movie, and I'm sure that's on your list too, but the kills in this movie are really good, really brutal. The girl in the raft getting stabbed, the dude getting shot in the meat cleaver to the face, Teddy getting stabbed in the back of the head crushed in the shower, girl taking an axe to the chest through a door, which makes zero sense. How Jason knows she was there?
It was a really good guess.
And then Rob taking the hacksaw or the claw hammer and then the hammer to the side of the head and then getting thrown, through the wall or through the window. A lot of great kills. And then at the end, Jason's kill is probably the greatest of them all, as gory and stuff it is. So the kills are ranked right up there in this movie. I understand why people love the effects. I loved everything about the kills in this movie.
My next good is the continuation of not knowing who the main characters are. This movie starts off with Jason killing people in the hospital. And then it goes to our group of teenagers that's rolling into town. And it almost feels like we're going in a different direction, Ronnie. It feels like we're focusing on this character, a male named Jim.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we're going to do something different this time. That's really cool and unique because we're not focusing on any of the female characters in this car. And after we, get to know these guys a little bit, we cut to the Jarvis family, and we don't really get a lot with them. I mean, Ronnie, think about it real quick. Think about the camera time, the run time that we get the Jarvises on screen. It's not a lot. It's really not. And as I'm watching this, I'm wondering, how is this family gonna play into this setting? Are they going to be caught in the battle between the teenagers and Jason somehow? Are they going to end up at this family's house? So yeah, I really like that they continued to fool us with the opening scenes of, hey, you're not sure who the main characters are.
The Jarvises, you bring up a good point. Rob makes a comment that I didn't know anybody lived this far back in the woods. So they have a residence way back in there, right next to a rent house that all these teens are renting. Mrs. Jarvis seems to have a lot of issues. And the reason I say that, she seems normal. But when those kids show up and her kids actually go over there to mingle with other people, she's got a look on her face at that window like, oh, no, I don't have total control over them no more. They're going to leave me like my husband left me. And I just got a vibe for Mrs. Jarvis that she was keeping those kids out in the woods away from everybody because her husband left her and she didn't want to be by herself. And she knew if they stayed way out there, she's all they got. I mean, Trish has no social life, it looks like. Tommy, I don't even know if he goes to school, okay? I know they go to town because they go to town for parts. But, I mean, there's no male figures in Tommy's life, which is why he runs to Rob immediately. Hey, come up here and look in my room. I mean, he needs a dad figure.
Yeah.
And Trish is, old gaga for the first guy she sees. I mean, she's gaga for those losers that move in next door.
Ooh, penises.
There's something about Mrs. Jarvis and this whole Jarvis family. Like I said, I really think this is the weakest story of them all because there is no story. The story is the continuation of Jason being alive and going right back to the camp. There's no story except Jason still being alive and killing people. Yep. Okay. I mean, hit me in the comments. What is the story of this movie other than Jason still being alive and killing people? In part 3, we had Chris returning to a place that she has trauma. Okay. We had stories with the other characters. Part 2 is opening up Packanack after 5 years and trying to get it back rolling. Okay. So there's no story in this movie. There's no story whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree, and I'm gonna touch base with that during my bad. But I mean, my last good, Ronnie, I don't have very many goods. My last good are the characters of Tommy Jarvis and Crispin Glover, aka Jimbo. Tommy Jarvis, Corey Feldman, the first kid character that we're ever introduced to in the Friday the 13th franchise. I think he does a phenomenal job. I know how you feel about Corey Feldman, but I think he plays the part well up until a point. I don't really like the ending of this. And then Crispin Glover's character, Jim, I think he plays that character phenomenally. He's a good guy.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's much better than anybody else in that group. He's much better than any other guy in that group, except for maybe long hair who busts one off in the shower. But yeah, I mean, he treats women right, and that's why he didn't get no action from BJ Betty or whatever her name was.
Yeah, he's a great guy. My favorite part is when he brings down one of the twins' pair of panties that he stole to show Teddy that he got some.
What's wrong with that?
Top-notch guy.
What's wrong with that? Yeah, he wanted to rub it in his face because his friend is being a dick to him for 2 days. Put that in your computer.
So I agree with half of that. My next good is Tommy Jarvis. He's the man of the house. He fixes cars. He plays video games. He's so bored out there in the woods that he's making his own mask, which obviously, you know, they modeled this character. Tom Savini's sitting around and they're like, hey, we're going to make him like you, Tom. He's making all kind of bull. You know what? Let me jump off for a second. Tom Savini told him he'd only work on this movie if they promised to kill Jason. Why didn't they just do that?
Yeah.
Who the hell is Tom Savini to tell these guys who are making $30 million worth of profit off all these movies? If you kill him, I'll come on board. Dude, you.
I would have sat at that table and said, dude, what if we kill you right now?
So, I mean,
rat-faced piece of shit.
What an ego on this ass.
I'll come back if you kill me. Screw you, dude.
They should have walked Darren in to fire him immediately right after he said
exactly. Hey, Savini, we're going to introduce you to our intern, Darren. Darren, come on in. You're fired, prick. Hit the road. And the best of luck.
But Tommy Jarvis he's really good in this movie. You know how I feel about Corey Feldman, but the character of Tommy Jarvis is great in this movie. He's not unlikable. He's the every kid looking out the window trying to see some titties and some screwing going on. He's surrounded by women who love him. He's got a nice dog, great smile, good kid. Bad plan at the end of the movie. He better be glad that plan worked. What the hell was he thinking? But I mean, I really like Tommy Jarvis in this movie.
Yeah, and we, you know, the whole thing is this kid's obsessed with making masks and horror masks. I guess he's supposed to be Tom Savini. I don't know.
I'm a Savini.
And everybody says, "Oh, that plays a big part in the ending." I don't get how. I guess he's good at designing stuff. So he sees this weird picture in the newspaper, and he makes himself look like Jason. I guess it's supposed to be the connection there.
Can I talk about that? Can we talk about that?
Let's wait till we get to the bad.
Okay.
So we get to the bad.
It hamstrings us not being able just to talk about it.
All right, Ronnie, what's your bad?
One of my bads is Tommy Jarvis. What the hell is the plan? Trish is like a hero. She's getting out of there so he can run away. He stays and he's reading these newspaper articles, Blake. And from what I could tell, the plan was to shave his head, okay, to look like the person in the pictures of the newspaper. Now, if you go online, they say his plan was to do what Jenny did, because in the newspaper, I don't know how it was put in the newspaper after only a couple of days, but one of the newspaper articles supposedly said that she was able to trick her attacker by pretending to be his mother. So now he's pretending to be Jason. What the hell is going on here? What if Jason would have walked up to him in one of the coolest scenes of the movie, by the way, when he's talking to him, Jason's mask in that light? What if Jason would have just walked up to him and hacked him?
No, Jason's reaching out for him, Ronnie. As Corey Feldman randomly says, "Do you remember?" What are you talking about, Jarvis? Remember what?
What are we remembering?
What are you talking about? Do you remember? And Jason's reaching out for him, showing emotion. What? He should have split his effing wig is what he should have done.
All right, so you have no more good. So I'm going to roll off my goods, and you're probably going to roll your eyes at this one. Rob is one of my goods, and for this reason only. The dude is jacked up. He's the sister of the one that was underage in part 2 that got the spear down while she was screwing in that hammock. Not really a hammock, in a bed, excuse me.
Sandra.
And for some reason, he's got all these newspaper articles that don't make any sense that are out there already. He's tracking Jason. He is the first person to be hunting Jason Voorhees, and I think that is very cool. And there's a lot of stuff they left out about him in this movie. People automatically jump to, he's killing me, because they like to play Rob weak. But Rob's in the damn woods trying to find Jason Voorhees. He tells Trish, the body disappeared from the morgue. Did you know, Blake, that Mrs. Jarvis is reading the newspaper early on in this movie, and it says the body vanishes from the hospital? She should be moving her family out of that area immediately, but she stayed right there. She's looking at the newspaper. You can see it. The body of the killer has vanished. So why wouldn't that be like a red alert for her to get her family gone? Because they know they're in that area. So He's hunting Jason. There was some scenes cut. He goes off after he hears the guy get killed in the lake after he gets shot in the dick. I'd be screaming that loud too. He takes his machete and he walks off. When he's coming back, he sees Jason in his tent. Now, it seems like he just walked off and then came back. He should have went and attacked Jason then, but I can get it. He's scared. He don't know what's out there. He just heard somebody die. But later in the movie, when Trish wanders up to his tent and is looking at his broke gun and all his newspaper articles, he comes back and he slices that tent up. What they didn't tell us is he was setting like trackers out there in the woods to alert him if anybody gets close to his tent. And I think that would have been a cool thing to know at the time, that Rob was out there setting traps that would, let him know that Jason's near him. So I think they left a lot of cool stuff out about him. And like I said, everybody always focuses on his death and not the fact that he ran down there to get Jason. He just got, as the kids say. That part of Rob, the aspect of him hunting Jason Voorhees, is one of my good. The next thing I have, Blake, Trish Jarvis. She's the best. She's the best.
Okay? Everybody wants to talk about Jenny. Everybody wants to talk about Chris from part 3. But Trish, she's never mentioned as the best final girl. And she brings it, Ronnie. Go ahead.
Dude, she's the best. Immediately, she's put into a situation where she finds dead bodies and she does the girl thing, the screaming. She runs down into the basement to find Rob. Rob falls on the step and allows Jason to grab him. He runs down there to see. She then is running all around the house, but she's taking it to Jason. She comes back over there with Tommy. Their house gets destroyed. Jason comes busting through the door. He throws a hammer at her. They run upstairs into a room. Jason's busting in. She takes a TV and bashes it over Jason's head. At the end of it, to try to save her brother, she runs over there and throws herself out of a window to avoid getting killed by Jason. Dumb move. But if you think about it, she had already decided she was probably going to die. She just wanted to make sure her brother had enough time to run away. So her diving out that window, it was like, screw it, who cares?
Well, she probably saw Gordon the dog do it earlier, too.
Can we talk about why the hell Gordon the dog committed suicide? Why wouldn't he just run off into the woods?
How come no one ever thinks this? Jason threw that damn dog out the window.
He didn't.
Oh.
It shows the dog jumping through it. Here's a better question about all those kills, Blake. Why the hell was Jason outside the window to grab one of those twins to pull her out?
Oh, I'm getting to that, Ronnie. That's on my bad.
Trish takes it to him. She's not scared. Well, she's scared, but she still takes the fight to him. She takes his hand out of the equation. When she takes that machete down between that third and fourth finger, that hand is done.
And I've never noticed that before, Ronnie. I'm glad you brought that up. I've never noticed that he does not use that hand anymore, because Jason gets her on the ground in a front mount position and you're like, well, this is over. But he can't use his other hand to squeeze her head and stuff like he normally does. This hand's dead, so he's just using the one hand to hold her down. And I thought that was very clever.
And our buddy Vincent Dasani, when we interviewed him, said that his theory was Jason was a dead person in this movie. The minute he escapes from the morgue, that is undead Jason. But Vincent's wrong, because Jason still feels pain in this movie. He feels pain when he gets slashed in the leg and the side and the hand, and at the end when he takes it across the head. Now, when we get into part 6, there's no more pain that Jason feels in the rest of these movies, but he definitely feels pain in part 4. So Vinny's wrong on that. I hate to disagree with him, but he is. But Trish Jarvis is right up there. I really don't know. We'll decide at the end of the reviewing of the franchise, Blake. But Trish Jarvis is a badass in this series. My last, is it my last?
I hope so.
No, my last is Jason's death. Machete to the side of the face, and then him hitting the ground and his head going all the way down it, his hands moving, Tommy's flip out at the end of it, he's watching the body. Is he moving? Is he moving? Is he moving? Because he knows the story that this guy's got. He's been back from the dead 2 or 3 times, or supposedly been dead, and he just hacks this body apart. That whole sequence at the end of the movie was really well done. A great ending. It would have been a great ending to the franchise if that's how it ended. A kid and a sister take down this guy who's caused so much damage over a 5-day span. but obviously it wasn't. But those are all my good, Blake.
All right, so you ready to get into the bad?
Let's roll.
Because I'm about to go on a rant, and just bear with me for a minute. My first bad is the way that this movie is laid out. And what I mean by that is it feels like they had an idea, and then they were going with this idea, and then they scrapped it, but they left this stuff in. And a lot of other things just feels like it's out of order. So the out of order stuff, it's like, so Jim dies downstairs in the kitchen. One of the more famous kills from this movie. Tad, where's the corkscrew?
Tad.
By the way, nobody heard it. Ted didn't hear it. This happened 10 feet away from him. Nobody hears it. Nobody hears it. And then Jason is magically on the roof.
Yeah.
Outside the window to kill the twin. And by the way, nobody heard that. Throwing her through the window, landed on a car. He killed the twin earlier. He threw her up against the damn house, and that was when the living room was full of people. Nobody heard that. It feels like those were filmed out of order. When Jim went downstairs, he should have grabbed the twin, and then Jason should have come downstairs into the kitchen, got Jimbo, and then got Ted. It just felt like it was all over the place. And Ronnie, where I'm going with this is this movie. And I know we've kind of rewrote the first three in our own way, what they should have done. This movie should have been a whodunit. It should have been just like the original. It should have been a whodunit. If they didn't show Jason Voorhees in the beginning in that hospital killing Axel and the nurse, and you just see someone killing them, I think that makes this movie much better. Now, I still want it to be Jason revealed at the end, but the reason I say that is there's just a lot of little clues in this, Ron. So when Jason is walking back to Crystal Lake, he comes across a hitchhiker. And I don't know if you noticed this. When he kills her, you hear Jason grunting as he's slicing her throat.
Really?
Jason's going, roar! Like, and so that's like a human quality that we really hadn't heard before. Well, I guess we did hear him show pain in part 3, but and then you got Rob suddenly showing up, walking around in the woods with a machete, with a knife, with a gun, acting very weird, saying he's obviously lying, saying I'm here to hunt bears. Then you got Mrs. Voorhees being nervous when kids are pulling up, giving awkward stares out the window, being mad looking out the window when Tommy's faking asleep that they're being naked over there, giving us real Pamela Voorhees vibes. So there's lots of little clues of, wow, who her husband just left her. Is she crazy? She's making weird faces. There was just lots of little.
Why'd they get divorced?
Why'd they get divorced? Great question. I just feel like if we would have got the reveal at the end, it is Jason, and now we see him in the mask for the first time, it would have been a little bit better. It would have been just a little bit more of a guessing game. Oh my gosh, it is you. You know, you did escape from the hospital. You are still alive. Holy crap. Because then, otherwise, what's the point of this whole teasing with Rob? What's the point of the whole showing the machete, showing his boots? What's the point of the weird looks from Mrs. Voorhees? I don't get it, Ronnie. I need it explained to me, man.
I think they had abandoned the whodunit by this time, obviously, and I don't think there was ever any depth intended to be added to any of these characters or the story. They just knew they had a formula at this point. Jason Voorhees, kids, hockey mask, brutal deaths. What I would have liked to have seen, I think this becomes a better movie if Rob is still hunting Jason Voorhees and he knows that police are all over the area. Jason can't return to his normal portion of Crystal Lake, and this is the only open portion that's not being patrolled by police, and he's there hunting for Jason because the body has vanished, and all the police think, you know, somebody stole it, because that's what Trish said. Somebody stole it. So he's out there hunting. It would have been better if he was like warning the Jarvises, y'all get the hell out of here, and he's warning the kids that are renting the house, y'all get the hell out of here, and they're just blowing him off. and saying, no, man, you get out of here. We're going to party. And then he's out in the woods. Then you can still have a showdown with him and Jason at the end where he dies. And you still got the same two heroes there at the end. And you still got all the kids over there that get killed. But I would have liked a little bit of story like that instead of just, hey, Jason shows up in this area where these two houses happen to be. I mean, they don't mention Crystal Lake in this. They mention Crystal Point, which I added to my notes. Crystal Point, where the hell is that? Okay, so I would have liked to have seen like the migrating, pattern of Jason as he knows that area is taken up. So now I'm going to come over here. I've never seen this area of Crystal Lake before, so let's see what's going on over here. Because obviously the Jarvises have been living there a while, and Jason's never bothered them. So there's that. But yeah, I'm like you. I think this story could have been done a whole lot different, but I don't think that was the actual plan for this movie, no matter what the director says. I think it was just supposed to be, hey, we're going to shit this thing out. We're going to throw a few people in here, and it's still going to make a ton of money. My first bad, Blake, is Ted and Jim. I think they're two of the biggest losers in this movie. They set the tone early when they're in the back of that car, and they drop more F-bombs in a 3-minute period than we've had in the entire franchise. That sort of turned me off with the nasty language like that. This is going to show how stupid I am as a movie watcher. For the longest time as a kid watching this movie, I thought Teddy had an actual computer that he was typing on right there, but he don't. He's just actually acting like he's typing. Okay, so that shows how stupid I am. I don't like these guys. Teddy's the kind of loser that lies about being with women and acts like he knows what's going on. And all he does over the course of the movie is say, hey, why don't you give Teddy Bear a kiss? And he tries to sexually assault one of the twins right there. Jimbo is a loser that's looking for the approval of Teddy to the point where he accidentally falls into some and then he's got to come down there and show him these panties, and that gets him killed. If he'd have stayed upstairs, he could have got pulled out that window too. So these guys are the worst. They might be the two biggest losers that the franchise has ever produced. Teddy sat there watching a 1920s porno movie while everybody else was hooking up. Ted danced like an idiot, and I know everybody loves that scene, but that just shows how dry he can make, because he's not getting a woman when he dances like that in front of anybody unless they're up on drugs. It is what it is. These guys are edit losers. And I want to talk about these characters, Blake, and it may be in your bad, and if it is, I'm sorry. Everybody always goes over the moon about how this is the movie that gives us, oh man, it's like a real teen comedy. You get to know these characters and you love these characters, and then Jason shows up and kills them. No, you don't. Whoever, I want what that person's smoking. You don't know anything about any of these characters. You know that Weird Science and the idiot and the jorts are hooking up because she's easy, and he's obviously so stupid that he'll go with anybody else that, blows him a kiss. You know that Mullet Head and the chick that acts like she's a librarian, they're supposedly in love, but they don't get enough scenes that you even get any kind of attachment to them. You got the two losers in the back, all right, and you don't give a edit about any of them. I don't care that any of them died. They're there specifically to be killed. There's no depth to any of those characters. Ronnie, what are you talking about? Part 3, we know about all of those characters. Even the Cheech and Chong characters had more depth. The bikers had more depth than anything in Part 4. I mean, Part 2, the main characters that we see, the chick spraying her, the guy in the wheelchair, they all have more depth than the characters in Part 4. Part 1, obviously, they have more depth, and there wasn't enough depth in Part 1. I've already said that. But these characters are there just to be killed. There's nothing. The only thing likable is the dance of Jimbo, and I just told you I don't like it. I mean, it's funny, but I mean, in real life, that dude's an idiot. He's not getting a girl. Okay, so it's the weakest bunch of characters in the franchise so far. I really believe that. I'm done.
Listen, I agree with you, and you kind of persuade me on a little bit on Jim. I think they missed the boat on Jim. I think he could have been the first sympathetic male character that we had.
I agree. They started off very well.
They started off very well, and they blew it. And how come this Ted character never gets mentioned for worst character in the franchise. Because after these rewatches, Ted from Part 2, way better.
Teddy might be worse than Shelley.
I think so.
He's just better looking.
Wait, did I say Ted from Part 2 or is it Ned?
No, it's Ted from Part 2. There's two Teddys.
We got two Teddies. I love Teddies. Somebody should suck Teddies.
Edit. What's your next?
Mrs. Jarvis off-screen death. Okay. So let me just say this. I don't have a problem us not seeing her die. I have a problem with her body not coming up and giving us that emotional moment of Tommy or Trish finding their mom's body during the final chases of the movie. And I understand, Ronnie, I did my research. That scene was filmed, but that was a dream sequence. So even though it was filmed, that was just a dream sequence. It wasn't real. So they never found their mom's body. And I think that was a huge missed sympathetic opportunity that we needed. And that would have really put the nail in the coffin on Tommy going nuts at the end. Can you imagine?
See, I have a thing on that. I don't think Tommy was going nuts at the end. Oh, you talking about going nuts on Jason?
Going nuts. Well, in the hospital too.
Yeah,
I don't understand why he opens his eyes like that. His life is ruined. His dad has left them. His mother is dead. He just killed a human being at 9, 10 years old, however old he is, and in a very gruesome way. So, and if he would have saw his mother's corpse, forget about it.
My next one, Blake, what kind of teenage twins, and this goes back to what we was talking about earlier when I cut you off, what kind of teenage twins dress alike?
Got a lot of problems with these twins, Ronnie. My first question. So if you would have asked age 0 to 35, Blake, what your favorite part of this movie was, I'd say the twins.
You always said that, and I never understood it.
But 36-year-old Blake, who is watching these movies with educated eyes now, I hate these girls. I hate them. Ronnie, what's their motive? What are they trying to do? What's their plan? Because let me tell you, they roll up on these scuzzes walking down the road, and they're like, hey, we're going to Crystal Lake too. You want to go skinny dipping? Well, they try to, the one twin, I'm going to call her Horny, she tries to hook up with
everybody.
What's the kid's name with the hat who's married to Hilly from Weird Science?
I wanted to say Paul, but it ain't Paul. So give me a second.
It does feel like it's Paul, don't it?
It feels like everybody's name's Paul. Hold on.
I'll talk to Paul. I think that guy says I'll talk to Paul. Don't worry.
Hold on. I'll find it.
I'm pretty sure it's Paul. They can't come up with new names, Ronnie.
They're all named the same shit.
Ted, Paul, and Jason.
There's a Paul in here, but there's no way his name's Paul.
I'm pretty sure that guy's name is Paul. She's in the rap saying, Paul, is that you?
Screw you, Paul.
So she wins a drinking contest.
His name really Paul?
And she's dancing with Paul, and she looks over at Hilly and says, you don't mind, do you? Clearly making her jealous. Paul says, let's do it. He's dancing. They're getting close. Hilly leaves. He's upset, or she's upset. And Paulie comes to his senses. And, you know, Ronnie, you talked about him being so bad. He's actually smart because he's thinking, oh, what about the ride home?
Yes.
What about the ride home? Because I could have sex with this twin tonight, and it's going to be fantastic, but I still got to spend another day here and ride home with her. And he looks at her and he says, I can't go through with this. I'm sorry. And he leaves. Well, then when he walks out of the room, the twin looks at the other twin who's sitting down, and she goes, she's telling him to go to the next one. And she goes over to Jimbo, gives him the hat, and asks him to dance. So what are they doing? What's their plan? Do they get off on like breaking up friendships and relationships? Like, what is going on here?
It's Paul. Edit. His name is Paul. We got Ted's and Paul. What the hell's going on here, Blake? I heard you. Their motives, Blake, are they're a couple of whores. And the one doesn't like how any of the guys look, so she wants to get the heck out of there. The other one is getting laid by hook or by crook, and she ends up with Jimbo. So, I mean, I'm flabbergasted by the fact that we have another Paul. Just 2 movies later, we have another Paul and another Ted.
That's amazing.
It's unreal. Unreal. I hope this gaggle of freaks that's writing this series are better with names than these right here.
Josh, Frank, Stan, there's tons of names you could have used, and you go with the same main 3 names from the first movies.
One's my next bad is one I've already touched on. How does Rob have all these newspaper clippings? How'd they get a picture of Jason with the mask on? But then I can fix that one. They probably took a picture of him while he was laying on the gurney, possibly. You can use that, but I think he's standing up in there. So it could be a picture from him laying in the barn. All you see is the mask anyway. I wanted to know how he has all these newspaper clippings after only a couple of days that this has been going on. When did he have time to find the newspaper? The next one, I'm just going to piggyback off of that. Gordon committed suicide. Really? He could have run out the door into the woods. So, I mean, why is the dog committing suicide? 0 sense. You're right. It'd be much better if Jason would have chunked him out that window. But I guess they didn't want to go the animal cruelty route, so they just let the animal end its own life.
Yeah. I had the newspaper articles in my list too, Ronnie. I don't really understand how they got this much information in a 2.5, 3 day period, but it is what it is.
Hey, look, journalism used to be a lot better than it is today. These guys were doing work.
So you brought up Rob. Let's talk about that whole scene for a second, because it was so dark on my TV. I didn't know what was going on in that basement. So Rob and Trish come into this house, right?
Yes.
And by the way, there's nothing in the doorway. They walk straight into the door. They go into the basement, and I guess Jason's down there. I don't know.
He's down there hiding like he was with that hippie.
So Rob stays down there, by the way,
searching.
Trish goes back upstairs. Is that when she starts finding bodies?
She starts finding bodies upstairs, the guys in the shower and stuff like that, and she runs down screaming, "Rob, he's here."
Yeah.
And she runs down into the basement with Rob.
Runs back down there with Rob. And Rob, they're going up the steps, and he watched the effing step like Return of the Living Dead.
See, I always assumed, me being a bad movie watcher again, I always assumed that Jason reached his hand up through the boards and broke them and grabbed Rob's foot. But according to everything I read, the board of the step breaks and he goes back down. And that, I guess he spots Jason, or maybe Jason.
They give us the Friday the 13th music like he just popped up. But I can't see nothing on my TV. And those two are going back and forth. He's pinching me or something like that.
He's killing me.
Yeah, I know. Trish runs out, and now all of a sudden there's bodies nailed to doors. All the doorways are covered up by bodies. I don't know how they got there now all of a sudden, because Jason was down in the basement beating off this whole time. Who knows? By the way, Ronnie, to go back to your point from part 3 about being a sexual deviant, they had it in the original script. Jason was going to fondle Trish's titties, and they cut it out.
Idiots.
Because all horror people are creeps, including the fans.
Idiots. Was Jimbo's body not up when they went through there? You're right. They went through the backs, or did they go through the front? Maybe they went through the front.
Ronnie, let's just say they went through the other door like you're saying. The twins' body was laid out across the ground there. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what door they went in, there was bodies there, but it wasn't there when they first came through.
How cool would it have been, Blake? I'm trying to make this movie better. And it's a really good movie. I like the movie. Don't get me wrong. I don't need any hate in the comments. I love this movie.
Great movie.
How cool would this movie have been when she run downstairs and she's like, she's like, Rob, he's here. And she runs down in the basement, and like Rob's just standing there face to face with Jason. He has spotted him down there, and they're just looking at each other. And then they square off. Like, she catches Rob's attention for a second, which allows Jason to leap at him. And then that's when Jason grabs that claw hammer and starts getting him over and over and over. Like, she causes Rob to die, and he don't look like such a puss when that happens. I mean, I think that would have been a much better scene where she's like, "Come on, Rob." And when she runs down the steps, he looks up, and that's when Jason lunges at him, because Jason doesn't try to square up with Rob. He gets him from the side. He sneaks him. And there you go.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about Jason being like, super strong and aggressive and stuff. But the fact is, he only looks at a way to take advantage of someone. Yeah. He didn't come in this living room when all 4 or 5 of them were sitting around watching a porno, smoking weed. He waited till it was one-on-one. I mean, imagine if a church lady and great hair didn't go up to the shower to screw. Imagine if Jimbo and Twin didn't go upstairs to screw, and they're all just down there in the living room. Chances are they're still alive, because Jason's not coming in that house with 4 or 5 people, fresh teens in there, or early 20s in there. He's too scared, too much of a puss.
And at the same time, he likes to pick the victim that seems the most helpless. I mean, there's a scene where Trish is trying to run away and he tries to hit her with the axe. And Tommy's like, Trish. And he looks over at Tommy. And then he looks back at Trish and chases her. Now, you can take that one of two ways. You can take it as, I'll come back for the kid. Some people may even actually take it as, I'm not going to kill a kid. That's not the case. He was chasing Trish because she was the most frightened and the most delirious. So he's going after the one, Michael Myers style, that he knows is the most afraid of him.
My last bad, Ronnie.
Pamela, can I ask one question before you give me your bad? Because I'm going to forget it if I don't ask it. Why the hell was there a random raft out there in the middle of Crystal Lake? Did Jason put that out there? Because he's underneath the raft. Why is there a random raft out there in the middle of Crystal Lake?
The better question is how is that son of a bitch still floating after Jason impales it from underneath and Paul goes out there 30 minutes later? I mean, and she's still above water.
There's a good explanation for that. You can say that the bottom of it, there's no air for it to be inflatable. The inflation is over the sides of it. So it just
it would have sunk.
Blake, with him stabbing underneath it, it becomes like a inner tube, is what I'm saying. And she's over the top of it. So, I mean, that part's not inflated, so it wouldn't have lost any air, is all I'm saying. You're probably right. I'm just trying to make excuses so it doesn't seem so bad. And how big of a puss was Paul when he saw she was dead? He screamed like me if I saw him. He gets shot in the dick. Why?
Well, that's just a lesson. There's a lesson in that, Ronnie. Save some for me.
Save some for me.
My last bad is the tombstone of Pamela Voorhees. So as the wacky gang is driving up, they realize they're lost, and they come to a stop. And luckily, they come to a stop right next to a cemetery that features a tombstone that reads Pamela Voorhees. And this is the first time we see the name Pamela, because all we've known is Mrs. Voorhees. Pamela Voorhees. I get why we did it. I do. It's to remind you this is how it started. Okay? I understand that. But to put this cemetery right beside the road, by the way, it's a fresh-looking tombstone, too. It looks brand new when it should be about, I don't know, 5, 6 years old.
5.
Yeah, I thought the inclusion of that was just stupid. And plus, it says 1979. Wasn't it 80? Wasn't it 1980?
I think so. I think it's like that's wishy-washy whenever they got through with it. Here's a question, Blake, before you finish your bad. They stopped right there. They stopped right there at a creepy part, creepy part to stop. Is that what led Jason in that direction? Would he have went somewhere else, but because he saw this carload of kids heading that way, he continued on that direction and ended up where the Jarvises were and where that rent house was?
I mean, if we would have got some POV shots of somebody in the woods seeing that car, that would have been fantastic, Ronnie. And then you could say, is that Rob or whatever. And then, you know what, the whole whodunit thing and Mrs. Jarvis being the person that rents out the house. I mean, they could have set this up to be a good whodunit, and at the end, it's Jason. I'm still standing by that. This movie should have been a whodunit, and it's still revealed to be Jason Voorhees at the end.
I'm going to disagree with you because at this point, we've seen you'd have to take out Jason escaping the hospital.
Well, no, all you have to do is not show Jason killing those people, which they did. They showed Jason wearing the mask, killing those people.
Well, Jason was behind Axel. Once Axel gets killed, you got to realize that's Jason, and now the whodunit portion of it is gone.
Someone stole the body, Ronnie.
That is true. I mean, Trish does say that, and they do say the body's vanished on the newspaper.
Someone stole the body. There was a story. Look, I'm not saying it's a great idea. I'm just saying why include those scenes? Why include the scenes of the mother acting weird or Rob acting weird? That's my only thing. I just feel like
maybe they didn't think they were acting weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just us looking too much into it.
Roll that clip of Mrs. Jarvis.
Got it right here. Look at it. Look at her staring out the window, wishing her kids were back in there sucking on.
I'm next.
Okay. Is there anything we've missed? I was looking through my random notes here to see if I missed anything. I really wanted to touch on all the F words in this movie. The dead F thing got old quick. It was a good joke at first, but once he kept bringing it up, I mean, seriously, gratuitous F-bombs when they're not needed. The older I get, the more I don't need to see that. I mean, I think we've hit everything that we wanted to hit talking about this movie. I mean, I think it's severely, I think people look at it with love goggles, because if you break this movie down like we just did, it's not better than part 2. It might not. I don't think it's better than the only thing better than part 3 in this movie is the kills
and the scenery.
Yeah. So there's an actual lake. This is the most severe lack of character depth. Great final girl. Great Jason. Yeah. And
great cabins.
Yeah. For these longest years, I've always been right about what the best movies were in this franchise. And part 4 is no longer as good as part 2 to me. Like I said, I'm going to need some time to think about it. When we get through reviewing this series, we'll do a fresh ranking and all that. But Friday the 13th part 4, an amazing movie. One of the best slasher movies out there. Great Jason. Great kills. But maybe my brother's right. It might be the 4th best movie that they've made so far out of the first 4.
It's definitely in the top 5.
There you go. Blake, it's time. Time for the ugly. I think we're going to have the same one. Who is the ugliest person in Friday the 13th? Start over. Who is the ugliest person in Friday the 13th part 4, the final chapter?
Ronnie, I'm going to go with the gorgeous hitchhiker who is portrayed as a fat person, but she's eating a healthy banana. She is ugly.
Mine too. She's so ugly. That haircut
is awful. Next time, use a bigger bowl, bitch. Oh,
she's got the headband just in case the hair wasn't ugly enough. We're gonna put a headband on it with her Prince Valiant haircut.
Ronnie, I hadn't seen this movie in a couple of days. Is she wearing a Canadian tuxedo too? Is it denim, like Mario?
I think we'll pop it up on the screen. I think it is denim.
Mario and Luigi, denim. denim. You've heard that before, huh?
No, that was the first time I've ever heard that. She's got that sign that's got FU on the back of it just because she knows people are going to not pick her up because she's so ugly.
Well, how long has she been hitchhiking, Ronnie? I mean, let's create a story for this big bitch. Has she been hitchhiking across the country and she's only got like one more county to go and she's did it and then Jason kills her?
She literally has 1 mile left to go and Jason kills her before she gets there. She's trying to get to her mom, Sandy, at the diner.
Wow. Now you're doing something.
Now you're tying it all back together. Now you're doing something with your life.
Something with your life there, bud.
Yeah, I'm going with the hitchhiker too. That bitch was ugly. And of course she dies with the limp banana in her hand. And I think that was supposed to be her making that noise, Blake. I think that was her. I'm
not talking about the gurgling noise. I'm talking about the grunt as he digs it into her.
What do you think she was thinking about right before he stabbed her in the neck? You think she was doing like the Chris Farley, great grand, another banana, prick of the day? Oh, maybe at the end of it, Jason should have come running down the road and slipped on that banana peel, and then Tommy's able to cut him up.
That should have been the banana peel. Should have been the reason the car ran off the road, and they had to walk to the lake after that. O'Doyle rules.
Jason's running from the cops at the end of it, and he gets to that portion of the road where he killed that chick, and he slips on the banana peel like that dude in the Burbs, and they all tackle him.
We never got a he was hungry moment from Jason, did we?
No.
Are we supposed to believe he ate Muffin?
Yes, he tore Muffin's guts up.
He ate Muffin because over there in Haddonfield, Michael Myers was eating the ass out of raccoons and shit.
He's hungry.
He ate a skunk.
I would have shot Loomis in the back of the head if he said he got hungry. Why couldn't Sheriff Brackett go, dude, he just ate 5 hours ago. How crazy is this motherfucker? I'm calling the news now. All right, Blake, that's Friday the 13th, part 4. Guys, Hit us in the comments with all the hate, because we know there's a lot of lovers out there. Tell us just how much you disagree with some of the stuff we threw out there about Friday the 13th Part 4. Let me preface it once again by saying we love this movie.
But it's not as good as you remember, though. It's not as good as you remember.
It's better than your favorite movie, but it's not as good as our favorite movies.
Oh, Ronnie, that's such a great take. That's such a great take.
This movie is so good. This is why this franchise is the best horror franchise ever, as we start now to head into uncharted waters of this franchise, Blake, where people really don't like some of these movies coming up. I'm having such a good time reviewing these Friday the 13th movies. I'm loving breaking down this stuff and looking at it and analyzing things, all while still enjoying and loving the shit out of these movies and the characters and the kills and the scenery, and it is really, really fun to do.
I tell you, Ronnie, I know what we're dealing with next week, and I know it gets a lot of hate, but the last couple of times I've watched Part 5, it has really, really grown on me, and I'm excited to go into this movie with fresh eyes and create some fresh takes on it.
You know what Frank Costanza said?
He likes to go in fresh. Tommy, you were supposed to leave.